Thank you again, Shell. And I'm actually just going to add something to that Alpha announcement. You know what? I'm going to add two things, actually. First thing is, of course, that, you know, if you're wondering about how good Alpha is, there are people in our congregation today that came to Christ through Alpha last year. So that's what Alpha does. But the other thing as well, yes, we're looking for Alpha leaders, but especially what I'd like to do this year is have one of our discussion groups specifically Mandarin speaking. So we're looking for Alpha leaders that also speak Mandarin. It'd be great to have like an English discussion group or groups and also in Mandarin as well. So I'm just going to throw that one in there as well. It's been a heavy week. Let's acknowledge that. I'm going to acknowledge that because if I get a bit emotional this morning, I'm sorry. But it's been a heavy week. That's okay. That's okay. It's good to be able to bear our souls to each other as family. But as heavy a week as it's been, isn't it good to talk about grace? I am so looking forward to talking about the grace of God this morning. Who's experienced the grace of the Lord? Amen. Who is perhaps wearing one of these? Anyone wear a, hands up if you have like a cross on a necklace. I know a few people do. Yeah, a couple of hands. Yeah, or maybe a charm on a bracelet. Here's a brave one. Who's got a tattoo? Yeah. It's very Gen Y. Tattoo. I wanted to be original, so I've got a fish. But anyway, whatever. You know, you see people wearing these all the time, don't you? Crosses. You see people wearing them walking down the street, like in Hay Street Mall or whatever. The cross is now one of the most globally recognised symbols. It once represented death, more than just death, shame, and, ironically, disgrace. Disgrace. Like the guillotine in the French Revolution. You don't see people wearing those around their necks, do you? It still represents deep sacrifice. But you know something? A few hours one Friday afternoon changed its meaning forever. It now also means unmerited favour, deep unmerited favour, grace. The brutality of crucifixion, the Babylonians invented it, but the Romans, they perfected it, trust me. And the brutality of crucifixion, it serves also as a stark reminder of the weight of sin, what it costs, and therefore the depth of grace that is offered to humanity. Sorry about that. I want to focus on Jesus' words from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. They carry profound significance. It's not just a cry for mercy, but a declaration of forgiveness that's both final and effectual into the current day. So imagine the scene. There is Jesus, beaten, he's mocked, and he's nailed to a cross. He's suffering excruciating pain, but his first words are not for himself, but for those crucifying him. Isn't that extraordinary? And he's not alone, is he? There are two others with him. And so we read in Luke's account, in Luke's gospel, it says, and they've got the text there, two others, both criminals, were led out to be executed with him. When they came to a place called the Skull, creative name, isn't it? I mean, straight to the point. They nailed him to the cross, and the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And the soldiers gambled for his clothes. Isn't that amazing? By throwing dice. I mean, as if the mockery was not enough. And he doesn't call down, that is Jesus, doesn't call down judgment upon them, but he intercedes for them and says, Father, forgive them. Have you been forgiven for something? Have you had that moment where you're like, oh, only to be forgiven? The relief. If you were reading the email that came out during the week, you might have read my story about when I was a kid, swinging around as I left a friend's place with my backpack, only to knock off this sculpture, rare sculpture, realizing, oh no, I think I've just burnt a relationship here. But have you ever been in that situation where that person has said, it's okay, I forgive you? Have you ever been forgiven for something? And can I tell you this morning, if you're not sure, here's some good news. You have now. You have now. Yeah? We're going to do some Bible nerd stuff, but stay with me. It'll be okay. The first thing, we're going to look at this verb, forgive. Aphiemi, forgive. It's in this thing called the aorist imperative. The aorist tense in Greek, it refers to an action, not just an action in the past. There's like 5 tenses for past in Greek. I know, we have to study this. But anyway, out of those 5 tenses, the aorist is the one. If you imagine like a timeline, it's like a dot. It's not like a dot and then a continued line. It's just a singular action. It's a once and for all act. And that is this tense. It's a singular dot point. Jesus is asking for a once and for all act of divine forgiveness. He does not have to continue to keep asking. He doesn't have to. And then the next part. This is interesting, for they do not know what they are doing. That contains the verb oidesin, to know. They don't know. They don't know what they are doing. But that is interesting. That is in the present active. And it indicates an ongoing state of ignorance, an ongoing sense that they just have no idea what's happened, what's happening, and what they will do. And it's worth pointing out as well that he could have said, forgive these soldiers. He could have said, forgive the Sanhedrin. He could have said, forgive Pilate for washing his hands of responsibility. I might have been tempted to say that one. He could have said, forgive Judas. He could have said, forgive any specific audience, group of characters, or individual character in the entire narrative, but it's generalized them. Them. And when we smush these 2 bits of grammar together, what does it mean? It means Jesus' act of forgiveness extends beyond a single moment and beyond a single audience. It extends into today, and it includes you and me. That is good news. That is good news, because the brutality of crucifixion shows us the alternative in at least some sense of imagery. But you know what? It gets even better. Luke deliberately juxtaposes 2 kind of opposite genres that are common in the literary landscape of his readers. The first is this genre of royal pardons that are given. This idea in the ancient world of a royal pardon, it is often granted by kings and emperors and so forth in the final days of their reign. And it is framed here within this larger structure of an ancient deathbed confessional, except, of course, it's not a deathbed, is it? But what it means is that in his moment of absolute weakness, what is the word of ultimate sovereignty that comes from the mouth of Jesus? What is his proclamation as king? Forgive, my friends. Forgive specific people. Much less go and get specific people. That's David. When he's dying, he's like, right, I want you to knock off this guy, and this guy after I'm gone. No. The true David, the greater king, what does he say? Forgive them. That's grace. That's grace. And you know what? I think we lose how controversial this really is. Last bit of Bible nerd stuff. We know from extensive early manuscript witnesses that this phrase was understood by the earliest Christians to have come from the mouth of Jesus. The evidence is overwhelming, which is good news, because strange things happen when you look at some textual variances. There are 3 early manuscripts that omit specifically this phrase. And when you get what we call textual variances show up in particular places more than once, you've got to ask a question: why? Why is it? 3 early manuscripts do not include this. For the fact checkers out there, it's Papyrus 75, Codex Vinaticanus, and Codex Bizet. You can feel free to Google that. So what do scholars do with this? These are early manuscripts. What do they do with it? This is a problem. Well, many argue that this was because scribes copying these scrolls could barely bring themselves to write this down. At the very least, it's at this point that your scribe's there going, what? At the very least, the scribe is having to lean back and take a breath. And it's so shocking that he's forgotten his place when he picks up the pen again. And this happens. They could imagine maybe the grace of God flowing to Gentiles or flowing to the soldiers, but not to the Jewish ruling party that handed him over. You know, sometimes reading the Bible's a bit like that, isn't it? I mean, we don't copy out scrolls anymore, but have you ever been reading the Bible and been confronted by the wideness of God's grace? Surely, yeah, I can understand God's grace coming to me, but surely not them. Who's your them? Who's your them? Do you have that person or type of person in mind, whereas you are walking down the street like Janet was? I'm not saying you did this, Janet, but you know, I'm just going to bounce off your talk. Where you see a certain type of lifestyle and you think, yeah, I can understand how God could love me. I can understand God's grace to me or grace to other people over here, but surely not them. Who's your them? Here's a confronting thought. Yes, His grace extends to them. Them. Really? But you know what? There's another question I want to ask, and I find this a bit in young people as well. What if you don't have a them? What if you're them? What if you're surely not them also? What if it's actually me? Yourself. I can understand how God could forgive person A, B, C, or D, but surely His grace isn't for me. But you know what? It was never deserved. Even our ignorance, sin, and rejection, He intercedes for us, and it really is us. It's for them, it's for you, it's for me. His forgiveness is not bound by time, it is ongoing, and it's available today. But it's also a decision. Grace is a decision. There's an Indian cricket player by the name of Rishabh Pant, and he is famous for being an extremely aggressive batter. He just loves to come out and slog it. And during the recent Test series, I was watching it, and some of you might have been watching during this actually. And India were in a bad spot. They were like 6 for not much, and they were very much behind in the game. And someone got out, and Rishabh Pant he strode out to bat, and everyone's kind of thinking, is he going to play his like super aggressive game, or is he going to pull his head in, just block a few balls and realise the game situation and just bat properly? Which option do you think he went for? So he comes out, and after about 6 balls, he like goes for this wild hoik, and top edge gets caught at some crazy, fielding position, unusual place to get caught out. The mistake that he made was he did this whilst a man by the name of Sunil Gavaskar was on commentary. Sunil Gavaskar is the grandfather of Indian cricket. And in that culture, literally, you see Indian players go up to the greats of the past and actually bow at their feet and even kiss their feet sometimes, or at least touch their forehead to their feet. It is a culture of great respect. And so if you're going to do something stupid, you don't want to do it in the moment where the great of the game in your country is on commentary. And so Rishabh Pant, he comes out and he nicks off. And then I'm listening to ABC radio because I'm driving around listening to the cricket commentary. And this astute, wise, reserved grandfather of Indian Test cricket, Sunil Gavaskar, explodes. And you hear this, stupid, stupid, stupid. That is not your natural game. That's a silly shot. You should not even be going back to the dressing room. You may as well walk back to the other team's dressing room. And this went viral online. And like even the other commentators like, yeah. He's like getting an absolute dressing down from like a dad like shouting at some poor little kid going, yeah. Poor Rishabh Pant. And I thought to myself, I smiled to myself, that, oh man, this is going to go viral. But I thought to myself, in that moment, what happened? The job of a sports commentator is to be impartial, right? It's to commentate on the sport, to point things out. Sunil Gavaskar, he stopped being a commentator, he became a fan. And who here finds it frustrating, even if it's footy, when your favourite player, when the game's on the line, what do? They go and do something stupid. And you find yourself shouting at the TV like, what is he doing? Here's the thing, right? In large groups, people get sucked into drama. We get sucked into the drama, don't we? We get sucked into what is sport? Spectacle. Who did spectacle really well? The Romans. Crucifixion is not just the death penalty. Crucifixion is the death penalty done in a way to create maximum spectacle. Why? Because part of its effectiveness of shaming people is to build such drama that it involves the crowd. And what do we have in the Gospels? Everyone is picking a team. Everyone's picking a side. Everyone's getting involved. It's all kicking off. It's a big crowd. They're even gambling. The 21st century version of this is like, advertising boards. This crucifixion brought to you by Sportsbet. It's spectacle, it's sport, it's drama, and people are getting sucked in. And that is so pervasive, it is psychologically so powerful that you can be in extreme agony in the final hours of your life and you can still get sucked into it. Because that's exactly what one of the other prisoners does as he taunts Jesus from the other cross. Can you imagine if you're Jesus in the middle, hearing the taunt coming from the other cross? I'd be like, are you serious right now? You're up here with me. What? That's how powerful spectacle can be. The religious leaders, they sneer and they taunt. The crowd are taunting. It's all kicking off. And it says in verse 35, the crowd watched, the leaders scoffed. He saved others. Can you feel the drama building? Let him save himself. He's really God's Messiah, the chosen one. If he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers mocked him too by offering him a drink of sour wine. This is like the fans leaning over the fence, shouting and pointing their fingers, mainly Collingwood supporters. If you are a king of the Jews, save yourself. A sign was fastened above him with these words, this is the king of the Jews. It's all part of the spectacle. One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, so you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by, guess what? Saving yourself. How is he going to prove that he's the Messiah? By not saving himself. Right? 3 times. And us too, while you're at it. I like how he slips that in there. Save yourself. Oh, and yeah, just while you're doing that. But the other criminal protested. There is one person in this entire scene that is not getting sucked in to the drama. Is there drama in your life? We live in a world that is constantly bringing spectacle, drama, and distraction before our eyes. And we are at great risk of not thinking straight. The late Timothy Keller once said, being spirit-filled means that you've got your head screwed on straight. You see reality for what it is. But the other criminal protested, don't you fear God? That's an amazing insight. Even when you've been sentenced to die, Jesus would have been tempted to say that. We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong. And it's Luke's gospel that records this. The other gospels just record the spectacle from a more zoomed out. They're to just hear shouting. But I wonder if it's because Luke's gospel makes the point of saying, I've carefully investigated clearly multiple eyewitnesses, that he has heard from an eyewitness that stood at the very base of this particular cross, because how hard would it have been to hear it? Out of all of this chaos, out of all of the drama, one person sees it straight. And he makes a decision. He makes a decision on the basis of right information, not spectacle. 2 people, one on the left, one on the right, getting crucified for probably a similar crime. Same situation, 2 completely different responses. One continues in ignorance, rejecting grace. The other thief recognizes who Jesus is, and he makes a decision. And he asks this, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. That's pretty good theology from someone who's probably never met him before. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. What's he just heard being shouted? If you really are the King, save yourself. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. He sees that there is a better class of king crucified next to him. Have you made a decision? Have you made a decision about the kingship of Jesus Christ? I'm not talking about the decision to come to church. That's wonderful. We are glad you're here. But I'm talking about your decision to trust Jesus at his word. It's a choice to believe in Jesus' kingship even while he's suffering, even when all the evidence of the spectacle points to the fact that he can't do anything, that he won't do anything. He sees a better class of king, a king not of shame and manipulation like the emperor of Rome festooned upon his throne. That's his MO. I'm going to shame people. I'm going to manipulate people. He sees a king of grace. Grace. So have you accepted the grace that he offers? You're going to get a chance in a minute. You're going to get a chance in a minute to accept it or accept it again. Because I've got some good news, friends, and we need some good news on a week like this. Grace comes with a promise. There is a promise attached to this. He says in verse 42, Jesus, remember me when you come into your, or with, can be translated, your kingdom. And Jesus replies, what does Jesus say? I assure you. Do you need some assurance? Do you need some assurance? It's a crazy world, isn't it? I assure you, says Jesus, today you will be with me in paradise. It's really tempting to go into the mechanics of what Jesus means by that specifically and how that works out theologically. That's another sermon. Feel free to chat to us at another time. But what I want to point out this morning is this. This criminal has done nothing to earn salvation here. I mean, literally, no good deeds. He's on a cross. He's probably wasted his entire life. He has not participated in charity. He's not been on the worship team. He's not taught Sunday school. He's not done anything. Usually accompanying righteousness, if you want to call it that. No good deeds, no religious acts. And Jesus grants him eternal life. Why? Because he believed that he was a better class of king, the King of grace. And that's the heart of the gospel. Sometimes it's just nice to talk about the heart of the gospel. Salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. That's all you need. That's all you need. And I know each and every person here, you've had different weeks. Some of you have had a great week. Some of you have had a rough week. Some of you have had a week where you felt like, man, I am walking close to God. I am living on a plane of holiness this week. And some of you this week have failed. And do you know what? That does not preclude grace coming to you. It doesn't. It doesn't depend on that. It's final and effectual. It's not temporary or conditional. Hallelujah. It is secured by his death, not your own self-flagellation and beating yourself up. It is secured by his death and resurrection. And when we accept his grace, we receive the same promise, and that is eternity with him. I'm just going to invite the band to come up as we just wind this up this morning. I want to finish today with a personal story, and I've been wrestling over this, but I'm going to do it anyway. There are times in my life when I have felt an overwhelming sense of unworthiness, especially to do what I do. And this happened to me more recently than I'd like to admit, actually, to be honest. And one day, on this particular day, I was feeling completely crushed by guilt over just dumb decisions and past mistakes. Have you ever had days like this where you're like, I cannot believe that I did that? But that particular day, of course it would be, happened to be my turn to go and share communion with Jill and Les. And I'm having communion with Jill. And Jill, she turns to me and she asks me how I was. And you just can't fake it to Jill. Like, how do you put on a mask with Jill? It's like, duh, why did it have to be Jill? I just couldn't pretend in front of Jill. So I told her, feeling like an idiot, because she's there like in agony, with cancer and stuff, listening to some person blab on. I told her how I was feeling. I told her what I was struggling with and how much I just simply couldn't give, couldn't pay in order to feel worthy of what I was doing that day. And here is this amazing lady, again, probably in agony, just listening to me blab on. It's her fault. She asked me how I was doing. And she just smiled and she said, well, I pray for you. I pray for you. She does pray. She did pray. A few days later, I felt led to ask God to specifically speak to me. And I happened to be in my morning devotional times in Isaiah chapter 40. And there's a few famous verses in this chapter, but verse 16 isn't it. It's not usually quoted. But it says this: all of the wood in Lebanon's forests and all Lebanon's animals would not be enough to make an offering worthy of God. And as I read that, I froze. I realized God was reminding me of things that I preach to people all the time and that I'm preaching to you right now. God knows that I can't pay. He knows that you can't pay. He knows that there's no offering big enough that we can give. As soon as I read it, I was reminded of Psalm 51, which is one of my favorite Psalms. And verse 16, 17 says, "You do not desire a sacrifice, or I would offer one. You do not want a burnt offering. The sacrifice you desire is what? A broken spirit and a contrite heart. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, oh God." That's a promise, friends. That's a promise. God cannot reject. Even if he wanted to, he doesn't, but even if he cannot reject, because he has said it in his word and you can speak his word back to him. He cannot reject, or regret even, a heart that is broken and repentant before him. God is not saying, yeah, fine, you're okay. It's deeper than that. It's more than that. He's saying, no, you're not okay, but you don't have to pay. I'm paying the cost. I'm covering it. If you've been ever weighed down by a sense of guilt, by a sense of a mistake that you just can't get past, I want to invite you to come forward as we sing this next song. Well, let me ask it this way. Are you feeling trapped by your past this morning? Are you feeling stuck? You cannot be more stuck than nailed to a cross. And what does Jesus do for this criminal? Today you will be with me in paradise. What's he saying? He's saying there is a way open for you. That's what grace does, friends. Grace makes a way forward. Are you stuck? Are you weighed down with something you feel you cannot pay? There is a way forward. There is a way forward for you.